Hello, my love, it's Zoe, and welcome to a special series here on the Oasis State podcast. Over the next handful of episodes, I'm breaking down big life transitions, or BLTs for short. We're going to dive into what they are, why they happen, and how to navigate them with clarity and confidence. Whether you're moving through a breakup, a career shift, grief, a spiritual awakening, or a major relocation, these transitions all ask the same thing of us: to let go of who we were and step into who we're becoming. This is the work I guide women through at Oasis State, and I'm so excited to share this framework with you. Let's dive in. Hello, my loves, and welcome to the BLT series. So the BLT series is a series where I'm going to dive deep into big life transitions. Basically, that's any season of life where you're experiencing intense change. That can be inner and outer change. And this first episode, I will dive into, all sort of the facts and figures and T's and C's behind a big life transition. And then for the rest of the series, I'll dedicate an episode to diving deeper into the particular big life transitions that I help my particular clients with and ones that I've been through myself. For example, grief, heartbreak, career changes, moving locations, spiritual awakenings, etc. So welcome to this series. If you are navigating a big life transition and want to transform that outer chaos into inner calm and confidence and capacity, then this series is for you. As I mentioned, I have personally been through all of these big life transitions, and as someone that was already a spiritual nerd anyway, I made lemonade out of my lemons and then channeled all of the lemonade, the understanding of life that I have, into my business. So now I help other women navigate big life transitions, and it's just incredibly fulfilling and enjoyable and amazing. So I wanted to create this series because it's, big life transitions are textbook overwhelming, and it'll just, the intention of these podcast episodes, and then there will be a social media series as well, is to just give you a little sense of direction while you're navigating all of the chaos. So all right, I'm sort of just figuring out how I've got the structure for my other episodes, but the first one always seems really hard because it's like the top of the funnel and you're like, what do I start with? What do I talk about? But quick little side note, I'm really, really excited to be doing some long form content today. I absolutely love social media, but sometimes it's just very stressful trying to find the right hook and get your point across really quickly. Like it's actually wild, the lack of attention span we have these days. So I'm just so grateful that I have my own podcast, so I can just come on here and relax and riff and not worry about having to get the point across in a minute, So I originally wanted to make this series a social media series, and I will. But like I said, I just kept getting so tongue-tied because I'm trying to rush to the point. And big life transitions are intense and messy and gnarly, and trying to get all of the point across in a short video is just very counterintuitive for me. And that's completely okay. This is, I love these lessons and this experience that I'm going through as an entrepreneur and showing up online, because it's helping me hone in my communication style and my expression. And I just really want to come into this space where I'm telling my story creatively, because even though we are all on different journeys, I find a lot of women that are on their own self-mastery journey, it's very same but different. So I want to share my journey so that you can recognize parts of it or all of it of what you're going through in what I'm sharing. Because when I went through the thick of my big life transitions, it feels really isolating and it's really lonely. And even though you've got supportive friends and family around you, if they're not specifically navigating that big life transition with you, it can feel really isolating. And I don't want to invalidate all the love and support that we do receive, but if you know, you know. So I'm hoping that this podcast series can bring you a bit more recognition and like that more tailored sense of support. So let's get into it. Let's start with what a BLT is, even though I've already just sort of explained it. BLTs are my abbreviation for big life transitions. And why not have a delicious name for a very serious life event? So big life transitions can be broken down into many categories, but they often happen simultaneously in a lot of areas of your life because they're textbook dramatic and they're textbook overwhelming. But some examples of big life transitions are the loss of someone, so a grieving process, even though actually all of our BLTs include a grieving process. We can also experience breakups, relationship breakdowns, changes in relationship dynamics, and heartbreak. And I honestly believe that breakups and heartbreaks are different, and I'll get into that in the episode that's dedicated to that piece of the pie with BLTs, relationship shifts and endings and dynamic changes, etc. BLTs, we can also experience career changes. So that might be just changing from one job to another job, or finishing your studies and going into the workforce, or maybe the other way around, leaving the workforce to go back and study, or my personal favorite, leaving the traditional workforce and starting your own business. So I have 2 science degrees and I've worked in many different careers and areas and had many identities. That's a huge part of navigating BLTs in the career area, is a lot of identity challenging, like it's being challenged and we've got to shift it, etc. But my favorite one has been leaving the traditional workforce and starting my own business. But it is not for the faint-hearted. It's like personal development on crack. But basically all BLTs are. And then another area of BLTs is moving locations. It's a very underrated, destabilizing experience. And I mean, it's underrated in the sense we don't realize how destabilizing it is, because I hope majority of the time that the reason that you're moving is for an exciting reason. But there's so many identity shifts and changes to our outer stimulus, which can affect our nervous system. And in my experience, I've moved multiple times in my life. It takes so much longer than you expect to find your rhythm. So I will dedicate an episode to that as well. So that's really exciting. And then there's also inner BLTs, so inner big life transitions that come under the umbrella of spiritual awakenings and ego deaths. You could call it, what is it called? Oh, Saturn's return. Sorry, I'm in my mid-30s now, so that feels like so long ago, but that was so Saturn's return happens between like 27, 29-ish. So it feels like forever ago now because I've been through so many years of big life transitions since the Saturn's return, but I can definitely touch on that. So inner and outer chaos, basically, and it can be expected and it can be unexpected changes. And I just want to quickly touch on my particular journey because I think a lot of women listening to this podcast episode can relate. But when you're navigating this gnarly season of change and these BLTs, it usually happens because you're on your own self-mastery journey. And I like to call our self-mastery journey just that journey to remembering who we are and the queens that we are. But there's sort of a rhyme and a reason to the whole process. Even though all of our journeys, of self-mastery journeys, are very different, there's still mechanics to it. And you can probably relate when I mention this. So I started I suppose you'd call it the spiritual journey back then, or the personal development journey. Oh my God, excuse me. It's all coming up. I always burp on my podcast episodes, and I think energetically that means something good. Don't quote me. I started my personal development spirituality journey, I don't know, honestly, like more than a decade ago. And it happens with like picking up that self-help book and being like, oh my gosh, like, what do you mean my thoughts create my reality? This is wonderful. This is amazing. And then you're riding along in this really cushy, comfortable part of the early stages of spirituality or personal development where you are instantly manifesting things and you're learning about your thoughts and sometimes your emotions and sometimes your nervous system. But personally for me, the emotions and the spiritual side and the nervous system side came later for me. It was more mindset work at the start. And I was like, what do you mean? We've got subconscious beliefs and our thoughts create our reality and they affect our emotions. And it was just, you know what it's like. You've been there. It's incredible. But after a certain amount of time, when you've been doing that inner work, depending in whatever area it is, like I said, maybe you got into spirituality through breath work or through mindset work or picking up a spiritual book. But after a while, when that work be working, Then comes the BLTs. Then comes the season of gnarly change. And it's incredibly destabilizing. But it also brought up a lot of anger for me and a lot of frustration. And I just lost a lot of trust in the process. And that's actually part of it, which I will get into as well. But it means when you enter your season of big life transitions, it means that inner work that you've been doing is working, because all of say it's the job or the relationship or whatever that's around you that does not serve this version of you anymore is taken away from you. Or in some cases, you've got your hand on the match and you're lighting your old life up in flames. It doesn't serve you anymore, and that chapter is done. So a huge piece of navigating BLTs is just to realize that literally everything in life is temporary. Every person, every relationship, every job, even life is temporary. We are only here for a certain amount of time. So that surrender piece is really important, and it took me like a super long time to get there. So if you're just at the start of your BLT season or you've been in it for a while, just remember it's actually an encouraging sign that you're being initiated into that higher level of life, that more authentic expression of yourself. But when I first started going through it, I just remember feeling fucking hard done by. I felt like a victim, and that's part of it too, because BLTs are here to help you disidentify from being a victim. But it sort of has to get worse before it gets better, which is really strange and confusing. And obviously grief is different as well, because it's not like you lose someone because they don't serve the version of you anymore. You know, like life and death are sort of on this whole different category, but they sort of come under the umbrella of big life transition. But if you've lost anyone in your life through death, it's not because your inner work be working. Do you know what I mean? Like, to have that discernment. And sometimes when we have career changes or relationship breakups that can still impact us, but in my experience, grief is just the next level. That is because the inner work be working. But then also when grief happens, that really challenges our existential beliefs and our relationship with life. And it's meant to do that. And it's meant to bring us into this space of understanding that there is something bigger at play than us, which challenges that spiritual ego. Because like I said at the start of our spiritual journey, where we're like, what do you mean I'm the creator of my reality and my thoughts create my world and I can have all of my desires? And then we might go through something like loss or grief, and it challenges that spiritual ego. And the spiritual ego is believing that we are the creator of our reality. And that is true, but it's not the whole truth. We are co-creating with the universe, and there are just bigger things at play that we just cannot understand. And that's the whole journey, is to demote the mind and realize that we're not going to understand everything. And if you are trying to understand things, that's just part of the journey. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't beat yourself up because you're trying to understand why your dad left or this or that. You know, it's part of it. And then you get to this point where you're invited to surrender and reestablish your existential beliefs and values. And it brings you back into this place of ease and peace and joy. So on that note, I think I'll explain sort of the mechanics of change. And that might seem really counterintuitive, because change is, it just seems very, it doesn't seem structured. It doesn't feel structured. We have so much overwhelm and just our life blowing up in our face, or our inner world is all of a sudden just thrown into disarray. Different to our comfort zone, because a lot of the times when we're in our comfort zone, we think that we're comfortable, but there is a discomfort that's experienced in our comfort zone. Does that make sense? It's a bit of a paradox, but when we shift from that discomfort of the comfort zone into the discomfort of big life transitions, that creates a lot of inner chaos, and it's very, very confusing and overwhelming. So when I'm saying that there's mechanics of change, you might be like, what? But there's a rhyme and a reason to it. And that's one of the many reasons and values of going through big life transitions, is to understand this. So when we are going through a big life transition, it is, again, it's paradoxical. It's usually we begin with an ending. It's like a circular. We begin with an ending. And as I mentioned, maybe the ending is leaving a job or breaking up with someone, or they've broken up with you, or friendship breakups. There's lots of dynamics, or like I say, grief and loss. Or in that inner sense, it's the end of, like, you're being initiated into that next level of spirituality. So you're going through an ego death, etc. So what do we need to do at the start of our BLT, where we're beginning with an ending, is grief. We need to learn how to grieve, whether it's the old identity, whether it's actually someone physically that was in your life. We have to grieve, our comfort zone. We have to grieve potential. We have to grieve, plans and expectations, that, future plans. There's so much. And grief for context, if you haven't listened to my other episodes, I've lost my dad in 2022, and then I lost my dog in a few months ago. And no offense, Dad, but losing Clifford, my soul dog, was wild, absolutely wild. And you can't compare the loss of people and different grieving processes, but just for the context of this episode, I will be. But when I lost Dad, that was very much like activating a lot of, inner child healing and needing to understand my attachment styles. And I didn't have a very good relationship with my dad. So even though I obviously loved him, and it, sucked when he died, but I was also plummeted into all of this like inner work that I needed to dredge up. And I've locked into that. I've got a grief series about that on this podcast, and I've got a book that I've published as well. So if you're grieving a parent and listening to this episode, you can find more resources on that. And I'll also do a BLT episode on grief. So I got you, boo. And then when I lost Clifford, like I said, you can't compare, but we just had a bond that was just... Sorry. We just had a bond that was so beautiful. And I think losing a dog, it's like, it's your structure and it's your routine, because they are dependent on you. And I took so much pride and I got so much joy out of making Clifford's life beautiful and enjoyable. And I live by myself as well. And losing him just took a lot of structure and a lot of companionship out of my life. Oh, sorry, I've actually been doing so good, but not that you can do good or bad with grief, but yeah, I just fucking miss him so much. So yeah, if you can't tell, losing him's been a lot harder than Dad, but it's also been a few years since Dad as well. But yeah, I just trust that Clifford knew that I'd be okay and it was time to leave. And that's what I was mentioning with the whole grief journey, is it challenges your existential beliefs. And when I lost Clifford, I was just like, I refused to believe that the world is so cruel and that he would just be taken away from me for no reason, because I understand that we're all here for a temporary experience, and Clifford and I had 11 beautiful years together. And I just trust that it was time, for whatever reason, even though my like human self can't understand it sometimes. My soul just knows that he is still with me and he is guiding me on the other side, and I just have to put one foot in front of the other. And that's exactly what I've done. And I've tripled down on my business, and because I'm just so passionate about what I'm doing, because like I said, I've been through a lot of BLTs over the last few years, and I've channeled everything that I've learned, the lessons, the rituals, the permission slips, the micro pivots, everything that I needed to become this woman and navigate life and move out of this season of chaos into this season of calm and confidence and capacity. I've channeled all of that into Oasis State. So I have a self-paced library called Find Your Oasis, and it can serve you at any point in your BLT and or life, because life always be lifing, you know? And then I also have Oasis State Club, which is a 6-month mentorship with me, to have that active mentorship and that sense of community to guide you through your BLT. So yeah, I know, you know, even though it's hard some days not having Clifford, I just know that this is all part of a bigger plan. So that's what I'm getting at with, I'm proud of myself, because when I first lost Dad, it did really challenge my existential beliefs, and I was angry and lost and confused, and I've still had anger losing Clifford, but I was still on a deeper sense, I was so rooted in like, life is not cruel enough to just take him away for no reason. He can't come with me for the next chapter, or our soul lessons were achieved, or whatever it was, you know? So yeah, I went on a massive tangent there, but basically the mechanics of change we begin with an ending, and yeah, that's what I mentioned. And then we were grieving. So sometimes we're grieving people that we've lost, dogs that we've lost. Sometimes it's just relationship breakdowns and they're physically on this planet but not in your life anymore. We have to grieve when we're leaving a job because of identities, because of financial security, which you work on yourself. So, and then moving locations again, we've got to grieve that old life, and we've got to open up space for the new one. So in the mechanics of change, we're in the middle of that. The middle part of that, once we're always sort of grieving it, it's all happening simultaneously, basically. But we come to this point where the BLT feels like you're a tiny snowflake in a snow globe, and a 3-year-old child has the snow globe and they're shaking it like the little punk 3-year-old that they are. And you're the snowflake in there, and you're just being thrown around left, right, and center. You don't know what's up. You don't know what's down. That is my analogy for big life transitions, and that inner and outer chaos that's experienced when we're in seasons of change. But what is being asked of us in that moment, rather than trying to cling on and have a sense of control and make sense of it, your BLT will continuously feel like you're in that snow globe until we can restructure our inner world and let go of things that are outsourcing our power, demote the mind, tap into our intuition, regulate our body, feel safe in our body, all of these things. It's all happening simultaneously until we can get that and it all clicks, and we get to this point where we are okay being in the BLT and okay with the statement, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I don't know when this is going to end. And it seems like disempowering, but it's very graceful and it's very empowering. And that's one of the many reasons we go through BLTs, is to learn this surrender piece. But it's like this co-creative empowerment surrender piece. And once we get to that point, then the chaos slows down, and the little 3-year-old puts the globe down, and all of the snowflakes can settle. And we move into this beautiful season of peace and joy and clarity and happiness, and we all of this inner safety and stability and all of the joyful things that we've created in our inner world now start getting reflected in our outer world, because we're in this space where our desires can manifest. Because we can have all the desires that we want, but if we're not feeling safe, it's like, I think it's hierarchy of needs. That's what it's called. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Don't quote me on that. But safety is the bottom of the pyramid. Safety is the foundation that we're always looking for. And we move into these seasons of BLTs to have our safety challenged, so that we refocus our attention and our energy into creating inner safety and inner stability. And once we've done that, like I said, then the snow globe chills out and the chaos chills out, and we step into this place of our desires actually being manifested into this world, because our needs have been met. And then once we've got that baseline of needs being met and safety, because we've cultivated that from within and it's reflecting out, that's when the dreams and the manifestations come along. So it's this little trick in our self-mastery journey, because like I said at the start, we're sold this dream that life is so easy and flowy, and it is, but you need to become a certain version of yourself and be on a certain frequency for that to happen. And that can't happen without a season of hectic chaos, because we're outsourcing our power and identifying with the versions of ourselves that we don't want to be anymore, or entertaining people and giving our people our energy that don't fill up our cup anymore, all of those things that I've mentioned. And once we can, remove those from our lives, or they're forcibly removed from our lives, and learn those lessons and come back to a place of wisdom and grace and trust and surrender and blah, 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 all those things, that's when the flow and the ease come along. So see it as like not a boomerang, what is it called? Bow and arrow. We have the arrow hooked onto the bow, and you need to pull the bow all the way back to get full tightness. And only then, when we've got our aim on what we want and we've let go and we've done all the lessons, which is the bow being pulled out to its full length, then we let it go and we catapult into this new season of life way faster than if we had the bow only at like a little bit of tightness and we let it go. And can you imagine that? If you didn't pull the bow to its full, extent or structure or whatever, the arrow wouldn't land where it wants to land. So think of your BLT seasons and all of the chaos just as that season of putting the arrow in the bow and we're pulling it to the longest, tightest length. And in that time, you're also finding your aim. Where do I want to be? Where do I want to be? And then we let go and we have precision and accuracy, and it happens in one shot, flow and ease, rather than all of these little shitty shots that we're trying to make from those older versions of us or in the BLT season. It's really hard to accept that we can't, it's not black and white, basically. We can still manifest things, and we're basically it comes in the form of breadcrumbs, whether it's the guidance or the opportunity or a little bit of relief. It comes in breadcrumbs, and we need to be practicing compassionate self-awareness to get to that point. So yeah, BLTs are a crazy season, and I should actually bloody mention how I got through a lot of it. I call it holistic mastery, and it is an understanding that we have multiple innate intelligences communicating with us and in relationship with us at all times. And those innate intelligences are spiritual intelligence, so our understanding that we are a soul and there's something bigger than us at play, which is actually just us. We've got mental intelligence, which is understanding, detaching from our thoughts and understanding how to have a conscious relationship with them. Emotional intelligence, which is understanding emotional alchemy, practices like forgiveness, and how to just feel your emotions and not all of the noise that comes with them and not intellectualize them. And then we have physical intelligence, which is about creating safety in our body, because once we're connected to our body and we've created safety in that, then and only then are we in the present moment, and the present moment is where everything happens. So I have created my library and Oasis State Club around this holistic mastery model. And I'm not the first person to work holistically, but this holistic mastery, all of the lessons, also there's multiple lessons and teachings and practices under the umbrella of the 4 innate intelligences. So think of like the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical intelligence like chapters in the book, and then the other lessons that I have available are like the pages in the book. So it's structured, but I also, if you work with me, I invite you to strengthen your intuition and trust your intuition and work through whatever particular area of your holistic mastery you need in that moment. So yeah, that is how we navigate BLTs, is by strengthening those relationships within us and understanding that we have multiple, like we've always got a soul, we've always got our mind, we've always got our emotions, we've always got our body, but we just misunderstand them and we don't have a conducive relationship with them. And they also all have a relationship with themselves. So for example, when I started my journey, the early stages of spirituality, I was only doing mindset work, and so I'm just focusing on my mental intelligence, and I'm shifting subconscious beliefs, and that's big work, but I didn't understand that I had a soul that I needed to connect with through my intuition. I didn't understand that my emotions would be affected by shifting my subconscious beliefs. I had no understanding of my nervous system or how to live cyclically as a woman. And I was only focusing on one piece of the pie of those innate intelligences, and it was chaos for me. So you might be able to relate to that, because that's, sometimes we just get into breath work and we're just focusing on that, but how are we tending to our emotions, and how are we, all of the other things that are affected by that breath work. So holistic mastery, baby girls, that is how we create that inner stability. And then only when we have that inner stability, the chaotic season of big life transitions can simmer down, and we move into this season of upgrades and peace and joy and everything. So yeah, if you're interested, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, Keep listening to the BLT series. I'll have, like I said, I'm dedicating an episode to each sort of area of a BLT, but also I have a free masterclass where I go through all of this in more detail. And then I've got my library if you're a self-paced queen and want to just guide yourself through your BLT, or come and join Oasis State Club, where you can have weekly support from me for 6 months to navigate your big life transitions. So that's kind of a vibe, eh? Okay, my loves, that is the introductory episode of the BLT series. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next ep. Mwah! Hello again, my queen, and thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If you're navigating a big life transition right now and want deeper support, you can explore my resources in the links below. I have my Find Your Oasis Library for my self-paced queens, Oasis State Club for my community-loving queens, and lock-in sessions if you want some private one-on-one support. Everything is linked in the show notes. Mwah!